Hi, everybody. Welcome in. An active and a very successful Sunday. I was 5-0 in the Blazing Five, 4-1 last week. So dreadful start to the year, but get more information, get a better feel for the league. I didn't think it was a great week for lines, but you know what? You get hot, you take it. I'll have a stinker here coming up in no time soon. My first takeaway is watching Philadelphia. I still don't think Philadelphia is playing as well as they're capable of playing. But if you watched every snap of that Rams game, or most of them, and I did, that was one of the more physically dominating performances I've ever seen. They had over 450 yards. They had a 38 to 22-minute time of possession edge, 28 first downs to 17. They were impeccable on third down. And the score is not even remotely indicative of what the game was like. Philadelphia just smushed and pounded and buried and punished the Rams for 3.5 hours. Cooper Kupp got some nice catches early, but McVay's a great coach. You have some really nice players for the Rams. They're young, but this is really what separates, to me, Philadelphia from everybody except the 49ers in football. Buffalo can beat you. So can Kansas City. So can Cincinnati. There's a lot of teams that can beat you. The two teams, last year, San Francisco, teams the following week after playing the Niners. I think every team the following week lost. They don't beat you. They punish you. They hurt you. I feel the same way with Philadelphia, and I don't even think they're clicking. But between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and the dominating offensive line, they just get yards when they need it. They have no personnel shortcomings. They can do virtually anything they want to do. That doesn't mean they always do it well. A well-coached team will do well what their personnel allows them to do well. There's shortcomings. I'll get to the Jets in a second. They do that. They do well what they can do with their personnel. But Philadelphia, there's everything. They have a quarterback that can throw and can move. They can play power football. They can go over the top. They get a great pass rush on the other end. Their secondary may not be as good as it was in previous years, but the NFC, the team that you're concerned about, San Francisco's got Brock Purdy, or Dallas has Dak. You don't feel like your B plus quarterbacks are going to pick you apart because of the pass rush you create. So Philadelphia is such an impressive organization, and they do what very few teams do in the NFL. They pivot a lot, and they remain successful. Bill Belichick can't pivot off Brady. Patriots are a clown show. They can't pivot once. Pete Carroll's pivoted 4 times in Seattle. Philadelphia pivoted off Carson Wentz. They pivoted off Nick Foles. They just keep changing, pivoted off Chip Kelly. This team is stacked. Now, the offensive line, they got some older players, Kelsey, the center. But, they've drafted well up front as well. So I just don't think Philadelphia has any shortcomings. I think they can match up with anybody in the league and can go toe-to-toe with anybody. I mean, think about this. Have they played a great game yet? Nope, they're 5-0. Buffalo's had some great games and been blah. Today they were blah, and they lost, right? That's the way it works in the league. When you don't play well. Last year, the Chiefs, Super Bowl champs, lost to the Colts, went to overtime with a bad Houston team. Generally, you don't play well, you don't win. Not the case with Philadelphia. So a super impressive, physically punishing win over the Rams. The score is not indicative of what it looked like. The NFL season, it's going strong. And DraftKings Sportsbook hooking new customers up with an offer even stronger. Bet $5, that's it, on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. How easy is that? And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. Get in on the action. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. The code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you just bet $5 on the National Football League. That easy. That's the code Colin, C-O-L-I-N, only on DraftKings Sportsbook an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Let's go back to what I said a second ago. Jet fans may complain about their team, but you can tell they're well coached because they do well what they're allowed to do well based on their personnel. They can run the football. They have good backs. And I think they have a pretty good run blocking O-line. They're not a fireworks show in the perimeter. They have one really big-time receiver, Garrett Wilson. That's it. So they're not an aerial circus. They've got good corners. They have a pass rush. They're physical. They play with great passion. So the Jets do, as they beat the Broncos, they do what their personnel allows them to do. They need to go get another wide receiver. When Aaron Rodgers comes back and Zach Wilson's the backup, they should be better at quarterback. I would address the offensive line again. But they're not that far away. I mean, if Aaron stays healthy, they do a lot of things very well. Denver's another story. They don't do anything particularly well. Russell Wilson, he's better than Zach Wilson, but, key fumble late. Late in the third quarter, he had 66 yards passing. It was underneath stuff. So I think the Broncos, even though they have, I think, some pretty good personnel in the offensive line, their run game's hit and miss, mostly miss. Even though they have some people in the secondary I like, their secondary's okay. So they're disjointed right now. Jets-Denver was an ugly football game, but if you're a Jets fan, you have to feel like we do some things well. I'm not sure what Denver does well. And I think Denver's got some good personnel. Now, whereas the Jets' good personnel is primarily on one side of the ball, which is why they're a better defensive team than an offensive team, the Broncos' personnel is kind of spread around. But they're going to have major issues here. There's so much pressure in the Broncos organization. Sean Payton's contract, Russell Wilson's contract. It doesn't matter if Russell has proved that he isn't washed. He better not be. For what they're paying him and the pressure on him, he's got to be excellent. He has to be an A quarterback. That's an A quarterback contract. Right now, he's playing at a B- level. C+. That's what it is. So people say, well, he's not the problem. Well, he's not the solution. I'm not really interested in pointing fingers on who the problem is. What's the solution? Or everybody gets fired. Russell right now is not good enough to be the solution. Who the problem is, who cares? You can't win football games. And I think the personality differences between Sean Payton, who's super intense, and Russell Wilson, who's more diplomatic, I think that rub will be interesting to say the least to watch. You also have new owners. They didn't spend all this money to lose. I think this could be just a very toxic mess by the time we get to Thanksgiving, and Sean Payton's going to win that battle. I think Denver, and I think you have to think about this, we have an incredible college quarterback class. I think we have to be honest about it. I think Denver, if there's an opportunity, even though they have issues on the defensive side, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, don't you have to take a look? I think you have to take a look. I don't think, let's say Denver finishes with 5 wins. And today, I'm not sure they get there. 5 or 6 wins. That's a top 8 draft pick, I would imagine. If Drake May or Michael Penix was available, Caleb Williams was not available, you'd have to look at it. The only way to get out of that Russell Wilson deal, and again, he's not the problem, but he's not good enough right now to be the solution. Or maybe it's just too many things have been asked of Sean Payton, and they don't have the personnel on the defensive side. But I'd feel good if I was a Jets fan today because I do well what I have the personnel to do well. Here's the good news for the New England Patriots. They didn't give up draft capital to get Mac Jones, like San Francisco did to get Trey Lance. They just waited and he fell into their lap. And we all kind of knew what Mac was coming out of college. Low ceiling, high floor, we thought. Bright kid, accurate, had a very good rookie year. He's regressed. And I think one of the things that hurts him is they got completely destroyed at Foxborough, back-to-back weeks getting destroyed at Dallas, now at home against the Saints, is that he has no allies in the building. He's pissed off coaches. He's ticked off teammates. I've been told he can bristle at times at being coached really, really hard, which Belichick I don't think ever appreciated. that Brady loved to be coach hard. Most players, great players do. Insecure players don't. Mac's regressed. The longer he's around the building, the more liabilities that surface. But the good news is for New England, they're bad. And they're going to have a top 10 pick, and they have to go get a quarterback. I mean, again, Jared Goff isn't highly mobile, but he's a beautiful thrower of the football. He's 6'2.5", 6'3". For all the punishment he took at Cal in his NFL career so far, he doesn't get hurt. He's always available. Mac doesn't give you anything. I mean, Mac doesn't give you any juice, any special, doesn't have the right size, mobility, temperament. One of the things impressive about C.J. Stroud, it's the temperament. It's at the podium. It's the temperament. Is he liked in the room? And people talk about that all the time. Jordan Palmer always talks about it. If you're liked in the room, nobody cares outside the building. I don't think Mac Jones is liked in the room. I mean, it's pretty well documented and reported. The coaches were furious last year with him when he went outside the building for advice. All the cheap shots on players, I was told that didn't sit well with a couple of veteran players on the offense. And, nobody's there to support him when he hit Sauce Gardner. Nobody raced in the Patriot locker room, spoke out to support him. So where are the allies at? When you're struggling at any company, in any industry, find the helpers, find the friends, find the allies. That's why be nice to people. Be nice, lubricate, don't agitate. Mac Jones hasn't done that. And they're going to have to draft a quarterback. Because, between the offense in Miami, Aaron Rodgers comes back, Josh Allen. It is interesting. We always figured Brady was more important than Belichick, but for years and years, there was a lot of people saying Brady's a system quarterback and Belichick's a genius. New England now is a dumb football team. They do what bad teams do. Inopportune penalties, turnovers. They're just a bad football team. And I also think Belichick's a classic example. Anytime anybody bristles at the current situation, he says, we've done pretty well around here. Nobody would deny that. Formally done very well around here. They have to draft a quarterback. And I said this 2 years ago. It sounded crazy 2 years ago when I said it. But I don't know what you do with Belichick. If he's not willing to give up personnel, he doesn't draft well. They drafted 2 kickers and 3 guards in last year's draft. And they're the slowest offense in the league. Now, again, Judon's injury, Christian Gonzalez's injury, they'd be a much more competitive team with those guys healthy. But you got to get Belichick out of personnel. And Andy Reid got run out of Philadelphia, and Andy Reid right now is the best coach in the NFL. Again, it'd be one thing to fire Belichick a year or 2 after Brady left. But this is another disaster. He appears to be a rigid personality, meaning he's going to do it his way or the highway. I think you have to consider having a long talk with Belichick. I know the Don Shula record is close, all-time wins. I think in the offseason, you have to have a long talk with him. When it comes to these Thursday games or these London or overseas games, it always feels like one team is just off. One team doesn't show up. They don't get enough rest. It was the Commanders on Thursday against the Bears. It was the Bills today against the Jaguars. And now for a segment called Making It Look Easy, brought to you by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. This week, Travis Etienne made it look easy. Jags offense, he rushed for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis had 4 catches, 48 yards. Jags hammered the Bills in a game in which it felt like they controlled. Just like Travis making it look easy, that's what Morgan & Morgan does. So easy to submit a claim. Has over 100 offices nationwide. So there is a Morgan & Morgan office somewhere around you. $15 billion recovered, over 300,000 clients. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting so you get full and fair compensation. Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people for over 35 years. If you ever get injured, go to forthepeople.com/Colin, forthepeople.com/Colin, or dial pound 529. Check out America's largest injury law firm. Winning in the NFL is hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. The Jaguars are healthier. It was their second straight game there. They were more comfortable. They were choppy early in the season, but as Greg Cosell had said, Trevor Lawrence had been playing very well. Even Calvin Ridley, his top receivers, had a case of the drops. He made some slick throws today. The Jags were picked up 10 first downs on third down. They were the better team, 474 yards of total offense. Some of that is Buffalo now has lost their top corner. Milano, their top linebacker, they got banged up. They had one of their pass rushers got banged up. So, but, look, Trevor Lawrence is 25 of 37, 315 yards. He was slinging it today. And that's the thing. When you watch a Trevor Lawrence or a Josh Allen, but let's talk Trevor Lawrence because he was humming today against Buffalo. And it's not the end of the world. Buffalo has been a hot, cold team. They're, as I always say, they're the Mike Tyson of the NFL. Big knockouts, or they can look really sloppy and ugly. And Buffalo coming off that dramatic win at home, goes overseas, and they just looked out of sync. Then the injuries started to pile up. But when you look at Trevor Lawrence, and you watch his size, 6'5.5", 6'6", he can sling it. He can move. Well, compare Russell Wilson to that. Or Zach Wilson to that, or the countless number of sort of C, B minus, D quarterbacks in this league. Trevor Lawrence is really good. This is a losing franchise that we've had doubts about forever. But when you watch that game today, I mean, he makes throws so effortlessly and so accurately. And by the way, it's all great quarterbacks get into ruts. Caleb Williams at USC in the first half got into a rut last night against Arizona, 3 or 4 throws, open receivers behind them. It happens. Mahomes will go into the weeds sometimes, and Andy Reid a couple weeks later mechanically brings him back. It happens. Brady didn't because he was so obsessed with it. But most quarterbacks, especially the hyper-athletic ones that move around a lot, they've got a lot of gifts. Sometimes they go mechanically into the weeds and miss throws. And Trevor Lawrence can do that. But when you're watching him sling it, man, he makes it look really easy. I remember, I'm not comparing him to Michael Jordan, but I remember years ago watching Michael Jordan against Phoenix in the NBA Finals, and I was sitting on a couch with a friend, and I said, he's not the best shooter, he's not the strongest player, he's not the best ball handler or the best passer, but I told a friend, I said, he makes it look so easy. He's just 6'6", he's not, he's just a 6'6" guy. Everything looked easy to Michael. Now we know it's not. But that's what great players, Caleb Williams does stuff. You're like, what? Whether it's a great golfer, a great quarterback, there are times Trevor Lawrence, and he makes mistakes like everybody, but he will just let it rip downfield, and it is a laser. And you're like, yeah, that's why he was the number 1 high school player, the number 1 college player. A lot of his struggles early were his teammates. It's not an excuse. It was his teammates. And I think Buffalo's going to be fine. I think this is what Buffalo is. I would be concerned a little bit. They're banged up defensively, but I don't question. One of the things I saw on the sidelines, Stephon Diggs kind of blew a fuse, and Josh Allen was looking at him. That went viral. Stephon is a very emotional guy, and in losses, that's just kind of part of his makeup. It happens. It's happened with receivers my entire life. I think it's fine as long as Buffalo is winning. But, Buffalo so far in the season, they go overseas, looked awful against the Jets, great against Miami, great against Washington. You get a little of everything with Buffalo. They're a very temperamental team, highly emotional. That's the way they play. That's the way Stephon Diggs is as a player. So I think that's kind of what they are. They're not consistent. They're an avalanche when they're playing well. They just bury you.